Hello and welcome to It's Our Time podcast. My name is Delal. I am your host, your friend, your cousin, companion, or nobody at all. It's all good. All is welcome here. This podcast is dedicated to the Black and Indigenous communities to share in our beauty, our wealth, our ups, our downs, our complexities, and everything in between. And as I delve into today's episode, I'd like to give my thanks to my ancestors, to Spirit, to my Allah, and ask that they guide this time that I have here with you all today. What a privilege and what a beautiful moment to be alive. I love the idea of creativity and I give honor to that opportunity wherever and whenever I can. So with that, I'd like to delve into number one, celebrating the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., for it is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Now, my topic is not going to be related to his history or his legacy, but it's always important to give honor to our ancestors that have done and paved such an incredible way with their passion, with their resilience, with their gifted souls. They had something that penetrated and refused to withstand the status quo. And that is always worthy of our honor, our celebration, and our inspiration. It's like our foundation to bounce off of. So with that, the topic is going to be my exploration about the Black experience that I've been living in America as a African woman and as a woman that is identified as an African American woman in the United States. Now, my family originated from Sudan, which is in northern Africa, a beautiful country. Was the largest country in northern Africa until it was divided into two, and they are also going through a very extremely difficult reality at present. So keep Sudan in your mind and remain informed as much as you can. I'll hopefully do another episode expanding a little bit more on that as I myself am learning more about that. I've been out of my homeland for over 30 years, disconnected from, because life, honey, I had a crazy life, but wonderful, and I'm grateful for all the twists and turns of it. But going back to my main point is that I am an African woman who moved to the United States when I was about 10 or 13, somewhere between that window. And I remember having this expectation of the US because being outside, living outside of the United States, it's always presented as this really ideal nation, the height of sophistication and civilization. Like every country that I had lived in prior, there was this high esteem when there was mention of America or the United States. And I believe it still holds that in a lot of other countries across the world. It still has that stature, that status, even though I feel like that's being shifted a little bit now in 2024 and so on. In the last couple of years, I noticed that shift. But so coming to the United States with this high expectation, almost like you're about to be greeted by Britney Spears and Sync at the airport or something, You're going to be seeing all these people you idolized from your youth. But what happened was such a peculiar, and I don't think it's an original thing, but a peculiar feeling of uncomfortability, but not knowing exactly why. This really subtle variant of othering that you could not quite put your finger on. It's almost like, you either have something on your face or on your shirt, but you're looking down, but there's nothing there. And everybody's looking at you like, how are you missing that thing? And I did not realize that there was such a distinct racial climate in the United States. And I realized what that othering was trying to fit me into or push me into my race bracket in the United States picture. And it so happened that when I looked around and it was other beautiful Black people and Black women, and the title that was there was Black American or African American, that's when I was like, oh, okay, I understand now. What I'm being pushed into is how this country will make sense of my being, my skin, my hair, my embodiment. It has to put me into a category that's already been established. And mind you, the Black community is a beautiful makeup of so much diversity. We are not a monolith, even though it's always my honor to claim being Black, wherever, and however it is defined or expected, meaning whatever corner of the world I am in, whether it's the United States, it's Europe, it's Asia, it's Africa, I'm always going to be pleasantly, proudly rooted in my Blackness and appreciative of that. For to me, it's divine. It's divine is the only way I can put it. So once that awareness came into play, there was a second layer of, now that I'm like, okay, I'm being put into where I belong for this thing to make sense. The second part that comes in is understanding the difference in reality, right? There was a clear way that this specific group of people was living life and engaging with life in America. And then there was a clear differentiation of a whole different way of life, the lived experience, the surroundings, the movement, like the way that your body feels comfortable in the space that you're embodying or living in. And that distinct difference between the ways that white bodies were moving and the ways that people of color's bodies were moving was so stark. And that's when I realized, even though it's one entity, one nation, there's so many different lived realities and experiences happening, and they are not the same. I'll repeat, not the same. I don't think that comes as a surprise to anybody, but it came as a surprise to me as a young woman. It really did. But I was always very observant. So I took my time, and I still am that way. I still watch. That's the way I learn. That's how I communicate with my ancestors. That's how I communicate with spirit and the universe, is by observing, because that's when wisdom and communication lines are opened. But, here we are. That reminded me of this incredible quote by Kimberle Crenshaw. This is from her writing on race reform, retrenchment, transformation, and legitimation in anti-discrimination law. And she has this sentence that states, "Black people do not create their oppressive worlds moment by moment, but rather are coerced into living in worlds created and maintained by others." I mean, how astoundingly powerful is that? And this coercion, I have observed, can be at minute levels or at micro or macro levels of coercion. And one of the main things that I've noticed as a tool for this coercion is disruption of a reality happening outside of whiteness, right? there's always like this desire to disrupt what is happening outside of that thing, especially if it has an essence of its own, a flow of its own, a narrative and a defining of its own. That's one of the ways I have noticed. It's a disruption of peace. It's a disruption of enjoyment. It's a disruption of way of life. It's a disruption of tradition, a disruption of literature. It's a continual interruption in how another populace is moving or is aligning with their own path, their own destiny, their own divine connection with the universe. And I believe we all hold that as a people. I believe each culture, each cluster has its own unique connection to the universe. And that lineage surpasses what we see from our day-to-day physical reality. And it just was an interesting thing because we live it day to day. I'm not speaking about anything that a lot of us, at least I hope I'm not, that a lot of us cannot relate to just off of our daily experiences. How many videos have we seen of Black joy being interrupted? How many videos have we seen of Black power being interrupted in the courtrooms, in leadership positions, in teaching positions? Because I mean, to me, that is a way to distract, and that is a way to destabilize. And it's just very interesting observing our world, you know. Now, all that kind of in my young mind, right? Because I don't think it had to do with being African, but I think it had to do with the woman that I desired to be, you know, in my life. And I've always desired to be a woman that possesses her own life and possesses the freedom of her sacred existence, because this thing is sacred, okay? Being able to connect to the universe, being able to talk to my ancestors, and being able to unearth my own identity through the magic of my ancestors is the woman I've always desired to be. And so that led me to open myself up slowly, because the grip of whiteness can be quite tight. You know, after it interrupts your reality, destabilize, it can be a tight grip. So my desire with my ancestors was, how do I open my realm up? How do I open my life up, my reality up, so that it can encompass the joy that belongs to me, so that it can encompass the freedom that comes from being connected to this divine universe, the trees, the plants, the leaves, the grass, the flowers. These things speak, and they speak to my spirit. They speak to our spirit as a Black population inherently, because we originated from Africa. That is the motherland of all humanity. That is a very magical connection, and a very sacred self-image comes from that. A self-image that cannot be defined or penetrated by the external reality or the external world in any way. It is guarded heavily by dance, by rhythm, by spirituality. So that desire, you see how much passion it has behind it, how much energy it has behind it, is what opened my realm up, my spiritual world up to my ancestors, and thus began this reawakening of decentralizing whatever entity is trying to maintain an oppressive delusion and mentality, to centralizing self, centralizing our ancestral legacy, centralizing magic that exists in this beautiful Black body and in our beautiful Black bodies. So I am looking forward to continuing to share on what that decentralization has felt like and the nuances that incorporate my own lived experience coming from my own ancestral trauma and generational trauma and how that's manifested. All of this freedom that I'm talking about that is sacred to us has come and is coming to me through my ancestors that have, in part not only created and experienced their own generational trauma, but they are here and present with us to set the course right, to give that divine connection with the universe back to us again. And that's what excites me the most about being able to talk every day and be able to awaken every day with excitement in my heart, literal celebration for life. I dance on the daily basis and I sing on a daily basis. Not to say that those moments, those days don't have darkness in them, that those days don't have breakdowns and shadow work and spiritual work, but I celebrate each and every day because it's a transcendent gift to be alive. And us being alive is our ancestors' wildest dreams. That is for sure. And with that, I look forward to our next communication. Why my mind blank out like that? But I'm looking to forward to the next time I get to express myself so freely with the remembrance of my community. That's where my passion is driven from. Y'all, anytime I remember who I come from and who I'm a part of, there is something that just feels like a fire that burns up. I'm ready. So I'm looking forward to next time. This is Our Time Podcast with your host, Delal. I love you all. Have a wonderful day.